This is The Scoop for Friday.
Well, good morning. I'm Randy Zimmerman with some of the headlines from our newsroom. Well, more than a third of adult gopher tortoises have died at a nature preserve in St. Petersburg, and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission is investigating. Axios Tampa Bay reports surveyors who conducted a survey of gopher tortoise burrows found 57 tortoise carcasses over the last 6 weeks at the Boyd Hill Nature Preserve. Gopher tortoises are a threatened species that can live 40 to 60 years in the wild. They spend around 80% of their time in the burrows. WMNF reporter Chris Young speaks with Jeff Goessling, a biology professor at Eckerd College in St. Petersburg. The surveyors and Goessling suspect coyotes are the cause of the problem.
Observing the dead tortoises that we're finding, they are all chewed up. So there's clearly signs of coyotes, a large mammal predator, chewing on the shells.
And as for the unusually large number of dead tortoises this year,
so I think that what's happened this year is it's probably just the right combination of the coyote social structure and the coyote demographics at Boyd Hill, where maybe one or two individuals, it might not even be all of the coyotes, it's probably one or two individuals that have kind of figured out that they can catch tortoises in the middle of the day.
Goessling says the species is important to the environment.
Gopher tortoises are a keystone species for many associated plants and animals.
That was WMNF reporter Chris Young talking with Eckerd College professor Jeff Goessling. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission took blood samples from living tortoises and will also set up wildlife cameras to observe coyotes. Well, Tampa's 13-member Race and Reconciliation Committee voted to formally outline policy that will recommend Florida's third-largest city, quote, addresses our economic and racial divide, end quote. The committee plans to investigate 5 topics: affordable housing, development, youth empowerment, residents returning from prison, and ignored history, according to the Tampa Bay Times. The committee was created in the year 2020 after the Tampa City Council unanimously passed a resolution apologizing for, quote, any and all past participation in sanctioning segregation and systemic discrimination of African Americans, end quote. Before the committee can get to work investigating and creating the report about persistent inequities in the city and ultimately recommend policy, the proposal must first be signed by Mayor Jane Castor. In other Tampa City Council news, WMNF's Jimmy Rosilio reports that some folks are working to protect downtown's library.
Tampa City Council voted unanimously in favor of making the John F. Germany Public Library a local landmark. The designation protects the structure at the highest level the city can offer. Any changes to the building, like the demolition of the annex in 2020, must go through a strict review process before it can happen. Amy Espinoza and Elena Paris-Ketchum lead the charge to protect the library. Espinoza says we must preserve these touchstones.
It protects our culture, the evolution of our city, the stories and the culture that connect people to these places. And as we age, they still stand so we can remember them instead of aging in a city that we no longer recognize.
People at City Council today spoke to the structure's significance in Tampa history and its place in mid-century modern architecture. The proposal's second hearing lands on May 16th at 9:30 a.m. For WMNF News, I'm Jimmy Rosilio.
Well, advocates for and activists supporting those without a permanent home in Florida are getting ready for the summer heat, trying to ensure alternative after recent statewide legislation that bans sleeping outdoors and heat protections for workers. As housing and homeless reporter Lillian Caraballo reports from that area.
Number of emergency cases last summer: burnt feet, dehydration, heat strokes, and seizures. Many lives were lost. This year, warmer weather is expected to grow into life-threatening heat conditions again. Neurologist Dr. Pia Valvasori says many people without shelter experience some form of disability or chronic disease and are at higher risk of heat-related injuries and death, especially as heat waves are getting longer and more intense.
Mortality rates are greatly underreported. Deaths due to extreme heat outnumber any other natural disaster. You can also see the devastating economic consequence of extreme heat events in our nation.
Valvasori says this year, the organization is collecting a list of additional safe spaces like libraries, gyms, and community centers to help save lives. In Orlando, I'm Lilian Hernandez Caraballo.
And it'll be sunny and warm today. This morning will start off in the low 70s, but quickly reach the mid-80s by late morning. We can expect temperatures to hit near or at 90 degrees. However, humidity will stay low throughout the day.
This is The Scoop, recorded at WMNF Tampa.